We have Datuk Muhammad Reza Shah Abdul Wahid, Chairman, Association of Seniors in Islamic Finance, to moderate this session titled Innovative Islamic Financial Products for Sustainability and Inclusion. And we have 5 esteemed panelists. Madam Dafina Ahmad Hilmi, CEO Hong Leong Islamic Bank, Professor Dr. Ungku Rabiah Hadawiyah, International Islamic University, Malaysia, Mr. Herwin Bustaman, Sharia Finance Practitioner, Indonesia, and Mr. Ahmad Emri Buyuklish, Country Advisor, Turkish Presidency, Investment and Finance Office, Turkey, and last but not least, Mr. Arshad Nuval Osman, Head of Sustainable Finance, CIMB Islamic. Dipersilakan. Over to you, Dato'.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Nice to be seeing old friends again. I think it's a very interesting session that we're going through today. Probably the whole seminar summarized into 1 hour session. So, and I have 5 very esteemed guests here. I'm not going to waste much time, but to start off with innovation, I just want you to open your app and download this app called Waqaf 360, WAQAF, Waqaf 360, that is in your Android or your iPhone. That is from Waqaf An-Noor. So they do some innovative products. They have Quran, Waqtu Salat, and also making Waqaf contributions through the online method. So that you can see here that we are seeing innovation coming through as well on some of these items. Waqaf An-Noor is very, as you know, is very progressive. They have assets worth about 1.2 billion, and if you ask me, they're probably the world leader in Waqaf management or cash Waqaf management. So if you can download and look at that, I would appreciate that very much. We have a lot to cover today: innovative products and instruments, Sharia compliant inclusion, green sustainability, social and environment, and long-term resilience. Now, what is most important is that Islamic finance must elevate ethics, sustainability, inclusion, and resilience. That is our objective here. Now, I'm not going to go into detail into introducing our esteemed panel, except to welcome our 2 very special guests from overseas, Mr. Herman and Mr. Ahmad from Turkey. Mr. Herman's from Indonesia. I very appreciate their presence very much today. Now, I will start off the session with probably the most difficult question, and I will address this to Puan Dafina. Actually, what is the most innovative and urgent innovation that we need today in Islamic finance?
Thank you, Datuk Reza. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning to all of you here today. Thank you to the organizers, and I'm really honored to be here with a very esteemed, distinguished panelists. Datuk Reza, you asked the question, what is the most urgent innovation required today? I just wanted to draw the attention to what we heard yesterday during the keynote from Yang Amat Berhormat Dato' Amar Fadilah, our TPM, as well as what AG Suhaimi mentioned with regards to Islamic finance and innovation. I think we are at an area where when we talk about innovation in Islamic finance, we really need to look at what the impact is to the real economy. What are the outcomes that is expected aligned to Maqasid al-Shari'ah, and what are the impact measurements that are required? And I think there was a comment made with regards to looking at risk-sharing structures, partnerships, and this is very important because As we have seen yesterday, Islamic banking assets in Malaysia contributes to at least 47% of total banking assets. Takaful, about 25%. And I think the sukuk market is about close to 64-65%. So we have come a long way over the last 2 decades. And what we have seen so far, at least from a practitioner perspective, Islamic banks are already at par with conventional banks. Products are a replicate. Whatever we see in conventional bank, Islamic banks have the same. But what would differentiate Islamic banks to take this to the next level is to really look at mobilizing capital and how do we distribute this to the unbanked and underserved using social Islamic finance instruments such as wakaf, zakat. And these are, I would say, these are really, really good, instruments that we should look to how we can scale. So I think one of the biggest challenge when we look at innovation is about how do we scale, how do we make that impact even greater.
Okay, thank you for starting out, Puan Davina. Maybe I should bring forward the question I wanted to ask Prof here. So, Puan Davina talked about innovation, unbanked, and interestingly enough, you talked about tokenization as well. In terms of solutions to look at women, youth, unbanked, what have you seen as a Sharia scholar, and what has been the progress in terms of these things in the market? Prof.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Datuk Reza. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi and good morning. So basically, we talk about innovative solutions to increase sustainability as well as inclusion. So Datuk Reza has sort of zoomed that into how do we try to have some products that can help the underserved, particularly women, because I think women is maybe in a double whammy because in terms of gender and also in terms of maybe underserved in terms of the maybe in the B40 category, in terms of the access to opportunities to some extent. Because I've met with a number of these unfortunate women through my involvement with some social finance institutions, like I've been involved with Awqaf Holdings and also with Khadijah International Wakaf Foundation, where they are concentrating in looking at the underserved segment, like empowering women, and also look at the issue of children and whatnot. So one of the interesting interventions that I've seen, for example, recently by the Khadijah International Wakaf Foundation is that it's not enough for Islamic finance just to to use the normal commercial banking instruments. So they have to go and have it blended with some kind of Islamic social finance aspects. So for example, in the intervention that they did, they actually use some of the zakat fund that has been, in Malaysia we call it zakat wakalah. I don't know whether it is understood by the international audience, but basically it means that the Islamic bank pays zakah, so the zakat institution will actually pay back to the Islamic financial institution for the Islamic financial institution to pay to the asnaf to distribute. Okay, so part of this zakat wakalah that the Islamic financial institution needs to distribute, they use that to actually provide enhancement and training to a group of women in order to uplift their ability to do business, and therefore they can be self-sufficient. So this kind of innovation, you need to have also the on-the-ground understanding of who your target parties are. So they need to evaluate who the women are. And as a Wakaf Foundation, we don't know who they are. We have to work with the actual NGO who have potential. Not every single B40 can be entrepreneur. So they find the women who have the passion and the energy and the interest to be an entrepreneur, who has proven through the NGO experience, they have product. So they come up with what they call Khadijah Artisan Program. The Khadijah because of the name of the Wakaf, and it's actually to get inspiration from Sayyidatina Khadijah, who was also an entrepreneur, a very successful businesswoman during her time. So we have this Khadijah Artisan Program to allow for lady artisan. They have the product, but they don't know how to properly price it. They don't know how to properly do the accounting treatment. They don't know how to properly brand and market it at places where they can make a good sale. So they have to go through, I think, around 6 months to a year with separate sessions with 5 different mentors looking at different angles of their development until finally they had a breakthrough. They managed to sell their products at the Pavilion and Berjaya Square, and now they are looking at marketing their products at the Menara 118 and also through AirAsia catalogs. So that's a kind of intervention that I can see that is a blending between zakat, wakaf, and these entrepreneurs. They are willing to pledge a portion of their income when the income is improving for wakaf purposes. So they're contributing back also in that way. Yep.
Thanks, Prof. Before I pass to the rest, I think maybe you should expand a little bit on tokenization that we talked about just now. Is it an investment product or is it a social product that has come out which can help society in terms of their well-being? Have you seen inclusive social tokenization product, or is it just pure investment?
I'm not, I don't think I remember coming across a specific social tokenization product, but I've come across a lot of fintech-based product for social intervention. For example, if I can't remember exactly the name of that platform, but this was from Indonesia. I think maybe Pak Erwin may correct me on that, where they have this particular technology to allow for the payment of zakah through HP, through the handphone. Because before that, they have this issue of not being able to reach the zakat recipient in time, especially during Ramadan and leading to Idul Fitri. They need cash money urgently. And as you know, the logistics in Indonesia, they are having a lot of remote areas, different islands. So what they do, they allow for that payment through a fintech solution that allow the recipients to receive it directly on their handphone, and they can use it to buy the necessities during Ramadan and during the Eid in a fast manner. So that's one of the solutions that I can think of at the moment.
Excellent. Thank you, Prof. Mr. Herwin, sorry. If you can expand on what Prof said, and then I'll just add on to say, how do we balance sustainability, Sharia principles, and commercial viability in doing?
Okay.
Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Datu. I think for the benefit of the audience, I think just to give perspective, Indonesia, the populations of Indonesia, 50% living in urban and 50% living in rural. Market share of Sharia banking or Islamic banking is only 7%. Yeah, so still relatively small compared to Malaysia. Malaysia, I think, is already 50%. Yeah, 50%. The challenge is actually, I think, the government push, where we can actually unlock the true potentials of Islamic banking in Indonesia. Now, I think if we look at in terms of the past 20 years, the most significant innovations that really helps the growth of both conventional banking and Islamic banking is actually on digital front. Yeah, Way back in 2005, the banking penetrations is only 51%. So mostly coming from rural areas. Sorry, mostly coming from urban areas. So rural, they don't have bank accounts. With digital, this actually help improve the banking penetrations to 83%. Yeah, so now 232 million people, they have bank accounts. Yeah, out of the 280 million populations in Indonesia. With that, same thing also on Islamic banking side. Yeah, a lot of people actually, they do want to have Sharia banking, but they don't have access to it. Yeah, with digital, the banking products become more affordable. Yeah, everything can be done through your apps. Yeah, so that's actually helped a lot. However, on Takaful side, Datu, Takaful is still way behind. Yeah, in terms of insurance penetrations, it's only less than 7% total insurance. Sharia only represent 20% of the total insurance market. Yeah, because of they don't adopt the digital innovations. Yeah, so this is one thing that we need to, for Takaful player, that they have to start adopting the digital innovations. Yeah. Now I think in terms of you're asking sustainability, right, Datu? Yes, sustainability, I think we need to also factor in the economic conditions of Indonesia. Indonesia's economy continue to rely on both soft commodities and hard commodities. Yeah, the GDP, I think from soft commodities contribute between 13 to 14% of Indonesia's GDP. For export, close to 20 to 21%. For hard commodities, contribute about 11 to 13% of the national GDP and contribute close to 45% of export. So when we want to adopt the sustainability, we need to factor in also the Indonesian's economy. I think yesterday, Dr. Asnan mentioned that on average in Southeast Asia, the contributions of the hard commodities is about 2.3%. In Indonesia, it's actually a lot higher. So I think this is one thing that we need to watch very closely, Datu. When we want to implement the sustainability to Indonesia, you need to factor in also the economy.
Thank you, Mr. Herwin. Let's deep dive into green financing. Arshad, you are head of sustainability at CIMB. We look up to you in terms of bringing the market into sustainability. And can Islamic finance accelerate green financing adoption? What are the activities that you have done at CIMB to advance that?
Thanks, Datuk. Assalamualaikum and good morning. First and foremost, thank you to CERT for the opportunity to speak on such a distinguished panel and such a distinguished audience as well, filled with industry leaders all over the world, some of whom have been my career mentors and some of whom have been my classmates at INSIF before. Now, to answer your question, Datuk, can Islamic finance drive green financing? The answer is yes. How? Maqasid al-Sharia. Now, what's the difference between Islamic finance and conventional finance? As we know, it's two things. It's the Sharia structure that makes it Sharia compliant and the Maqasid al-Sharia that looks at the benevolence beyond the compliance. Now, I would like to commend Securities Commission Malaysia for coming up with the Maqasid al-Sharia guidance in November last year. Because for the past 10 years of being in the Islamic finance industry, and after spending 2 years at INSIF doing my master's, the discussion of Maqasid al-Sharia has been conceptual until the document came out from the Securities Commission Malaysia that laid out clearly the 15 principles that can be acted upon by the Islamic financial sector. Specifically, Principle 3 with regards to the environment, where it states intergenerational preservation. Now, with regards to how it is being implemented, again, the foresight by the Securities Commission, getting the Sharia advisors of the Islamic banks to incorporate it within the Sharia pronouncement. So when a Sharia pronouncement is issued for a particular sukuk issuance, the Sharia advisor is now expected to state which principle of the Maqasid al-Sharia is involved in the sukuk issuance. So starting with the capital market, sukuk being the most prominent instrument in Islamic finance. I think there's also something that goes beyond the sukuk market with regards to Maqasid al-Sharia. So when people talk about climate change, it usually boils down to three things: technological advancement, policy development, and consumer preferences. In my opinion, the Maqasid al-Sharia can affect consumer preferences because it is an incentive mechanism to do the right thing for the environment. So whilst in Malaysia, as we know from the most recent budget announcement, the carbon tax will be implemented as early as next year on 3 sectors, iron, steel, and energy. That will change consumer preferences. From a pricing perspective, in my opinion, the Maqasid al-Sharia supplements the change in consumer preferences for Muslims because we are incentivized to do the right thing based on the Maqasid al-Sharia.
Thank you, Arshad. Let's now move to Mr. Ahmad Emre. I think we are dying to know about the innovations that are happening in Turkey and how that can be brought across in terms of cross-border collaboration or cross-border working together with the Turkish people. So perhaps you could update us.
For sure. Assalamu alaikum, distinguished, panelists. Dato, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I would love to really thank the organizers having this kind of established panel, gathering 20 years in a row. I think that's quite a bit of success, I can say. I'm just coming from quite a bit different background of organization, representing like a Turkish investment and finance office, which means we are more like a counterpart of MIDA plus kind of a pre-approval body for the Istanbul Financial Center. And from our perspective, I think no matter what, be it conventional or Islamic finance, I think the purpose should be serving to a community, and the innovation should also bring some sort of a real life examples to be able to utilize the potential of our enterprises and as well as the individuals. And when we look at the kind of those tangible innovations come out of the Turkish market, I would first and foremost give the example of gold sukuk. I think as coming from a country where we have a huge kind of household interest in the gold as an asset class to kind of wealth preservation, these gold-backed sukuk issuances have become a very hot topic. And this is tapping into real assets and very much in line with the Sharia principles. And it could be applicable all across the GCC, South Asia, and Southeast Asia as well. And following that, gold sukuks, maybe I should just mention about the kind of those instruments backing the real economy, like an SMEs and micro SMEs. For the sake of terminology, again, mudarabaha or musharaka, implementation. Those kind of like a digitally enabled instruments closing the gap of the access to finance in a real time, in a very dedicated manner of backing the growth capital of the SMEs have become another kind of area of innovation, which could be, I think, reflected on other Organization of Islamic Cooperation economies, because the backbone of our economies in the Muslim societies are the SMEs. Those are the who needs the kind of access to finance more than any others. And also, I think I should elaborate on a bit of the Islamic fintechs as well, because those, we have been discussing a lot about the fintech innovation in the society. And we had a number of very successful, fintech kind of like ventures coming out of the most legacy banks, which have been operating in the market, in Turkish market, from internationally recognized banks like an Al Baraka and like a Kuwait Turk Participation Bank. There are those like an API, open API banking applications. These are spreading all across the, I think, to the different areas of Islamic finance. And maybe last but not least, I should mention about the disaster recovery sort of, like a maybe Islamic finance applications for the disaster recovery, because we have gone through a very unfortunate, earthquake in the last couple, two and a half years ago. And for the reconstruction of the, the urbanization and the society, so those instruments have been very instrumental to rebuild. I think right after having a huge impacts of the earthquake disaster, those could be replicated, especially when we are talking about the sustainability and the de-risking the climate impact. Maybe other countries can get some inspiration from the Turkish application so far. I think these are the kind of innovation areas I can talk about so far. Yeah.
All right, very, very interesting. Thank you for your update,
Pleasure.
Mr. Ahmad. Let's move on back to Prof. Prof, should Sharia governance evolve to support innovation, and should it be regulation driven? We've seen a lot of things that have come out from Islamic finance in Malaysia, which are regulation driven. Are we going to see innovation which is going to be also regulation driven, and the governance aspect of that?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rizal, for that second question. Basically, we talk about regulation and innovation. For me, regulation is very much externally driven, but I believe that innovation should be more like internally driven. Then only you have that creativity to actually renovate, because it's coming from yourself rather than being pushed by external party. And for me, innovation, all innovation must be responsible innovation. And from the Sharia perspective, we look at the issue of what do you call this, financial aspects. One of the main things that we do, or the basic principle, we look at principle-based innovation. One of the basic principles in Islamic finance is, of course, avoidance of riba, right? And the first day during the opening ceremony, the Qari actually read a very poignant verse that relates to that. Basically, he read chapter 2, Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 275. He read a lot of that, but the one that actually relate to what we are discussing now, I think, is verse 275 and verse 279. So if you look at those verses, it talks about the prohibition of riba, and also, as opposed to the prohibition of riba, Allah says that Allah permits trade. So the direct alternative mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 275, is that riba should be, alternative to riba is actually trade. So if we are thinking about innovation, think about how you innovate on the line of how it actually relates to pushing for trade to happen, and how trade actually results in productivity, and how that would actually turn the economic wheel in a very active manner. And then in verse 276, the following the verse on Allah mentioned wa halallahu al-bai'a wa harrama riba. The following verse, Allah talks about putting riba as opposed to sadaqat. Yamhaqullahu riba wa yurbi sadaqat. So that is another indication that if you want to, overcome the issue of negative implication of riba, is to focus on sadaqat, which is essentially Islamic social finance. So these are the two, I think, pillars when we talk about innovation that will lead to sustainability and more inclusion. Focus on innovation that will activate and make a more vibrant trade, and also have innovation that can have elements of Islamic social finance in it. So we think in Malaysia we have, I think, a move in the right direction. I think we have started with the iTakat, which is essentially blending Islamic social finance with commercial banks, and they're using sources from zakat, wakaf, and sadaqah to fund Islamic microfinance, to help the B40, the unbankable. And recently, in the previous budget, and was also mentioned by AG Suhaimi the first day, the government has also allocated the risk sharing fund, 100 million matching risk sharing fund, and that actually resulted in Bank Negara coming out with the iCita, which is basically allowing for more risk sharing contracts to be innovated by Islamic banks, and their risk is mitigated because for every dollar or every ringgit the bank puts in that financing, there will be another matching $1 or 1 ringgit from the government. So it's up to 100 million ringgit. So it's like a piloting innovation for Islamic Bank to do risk sharing. So that's very interesting, and we are excited to see how innovation will come into the picture. But has started to roll. I think recently we have received already proposal to do financing capital for paddy farmers using salam contract, which is a very interesting structure. And we also seen how Islamic Bank has come up with products proposal to have parallel istisna to allow for working capital financing for manufacturers or so. So all of these are not the common credit-based kind of contracts that Islamic finance are familiar of, but I think we are in the right track to come up with more responsible innovation that is aligned towards Maqasid Sharia, because riba, according to Islamic perspective, is non-sustainable financially. We have to refrain from riba, whether the direct form or indirect form, and we have to be innovative to support trade and also to support Islamic social finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof, for reminding us. And I think you're spot on in saying that Islam does not prohibit trade. Islam wants us to innovate trade, in fact. And it is our duty actually here to see how we can innovate. And what I see from as an perspective from an ex-banker is that it's the third party who usually comes to financial institutions with their innovation, and then we look at it. And I rarely see, from an inclusive point of view, a particular department or innovative ideas coming from the bank or the institution itself. I hope that will change in the sense that the banks or institutions themselves take it at a point to try and innovate. And with that in mind, on innovating social type products will be more productive and more Islamic in how we look at things. Now, if I can bring forward Mr. Herwin, he has to leave us very soon. I will ask you some questions about digital innovation in Takaful and the insurance industries that you have come across. And is that a good thing, and has it impacted the banking sector, or how have you seen the progress in Indonesia?
Okay, thank you, Dato'. Actually, I mentioned earlier that the digital innovations has helped the banking industry. Banking penetrations from 51% way back in 2005 to 2024 about 83%. Unfortunately, not happening for Takaful side or insurance side. Yeah, the penetration is still very small. Yeah, because I think the uniqueness of insurance and Takaful business, they rely on 4 distribution channels. The first one through agencies. Yeah, probably different market will probably different percentage. Indonesia, 50% coming from agency. Yeah, another 35% coming from bank partners, and then 12 to 13% from corporate, group insurance. The remaining coming from digital. So I think if in Indonesia, I don't know in other markets, the Takaful or insurance business is still manual process business. Yeah, when they receive the applications, an underwriting actually review that applications. So this is one thing that they need to start adopting that too. And we've seen in other markets, such as in the US, China, and India, they already have AI reviewing the applications. So the underwriting process not only seamless, but also become less subjective and a lot faster. Yeah. Second things, of course, when it comes to the customer-facing digital innovations, yeah, that can also be used to ask the right questions to customer, and then tailor-made the product to suit that customer needs. Yeah, that's also one of the opportunity for Takaful or insurance business. Last but not least, also the truly AI value propositions. Yeah, I think not only just customer-facing, but also underwriting and handling of the customer, be it in terms of claim, changing or modify the insurance feature, or even handling complaints that too. So I think this, and we've seen in other market, this type of AI value propositions already up and running, such as in China, Zhong'an, it already adopt the truly AI value propositions.
Okay. Thank you, Herwind. Maybe we can then move to Puan Davina. What have been your operational challenge in terms of looking at sustainable Islamic products, and maybe has AI really helped you, or what? Thanks.
So I think when we look at the operational challenges of driving sustainable Islamic products, the first and foremost important thing is to look at the underlying value proposition. What exactly are we trying to address? Now, if we look into Islamic wealth management, right, from wealth creation, wealth accumulation, wealth protection, distribution, purification, it is an end-to-end cycle. Wealth has to be managed, has to be distributed, has to be shared. It is not ours, it belongs to Allah. So as intermediaries within this ecosystem, what exactly are we looking to address? So I think by understanding which segment or which part of the life cycle that we want to look into, then we can understand what are those challenges. So as an example, if we start from the very basic of wealth creation, which is getting halal income, making sure we have the financial knowledge, the financial literacy on where to invest. How do you accumulate that? And after that, how do you build your wealth? How do you protect your loved ones through takaful, instruments? How do you purify through sedekah, through wakaf, zakat? And of course, at the end, how do you distribute through will writing, through estate planning? All this is very important because it looks at the end-to-end life cycle, and from an Islamic perspective, it's basically from cradle to grave. By understanding each of these components And of course, this is where financial intermediaries have to work within the ecosystem, working with the zakat authorities, working with the Waqaf authorities, working with other financial institutions, working with fintech. I think we heard a lot about fintech. And how do we harness technology? I think earlier Prof. Engku spoke about digital assets, tokenization. Why is this important? Why is it important to us? I think this is where we see the trend moving into in this digital age. Digital transformation is already happening. Islamic banks, we need to embrace and see how we can leverage on these technology to scale, because we want to make Islamic finance more accessible. We want to make Islamic finance products in terms of the return. So I mentioned about wealth accumulation. We spoke about tokenized assets, tokenized deposits, as an example, tokenized sukuk. How do you make that ownership more reachable to the men on the street, not just for any institutional investors? So there is a lot of areas to look into, and it comes with financial literacy, digital literacy, and a lot of other things which Islamic banks, being part of the ecosystem, we need to collaborate. So it's really about understanding what is the end game, what is the outcome, what do we want to achieve. And I see a question, I don't know whether, can I just take the question just to, yeah, there's a question on Slido, I'll just quickly take this, if that's okay, Dr. Reza, okay. So the question is, how can Waqaf scale and be used in Islamic banking to benefit the rakyat? So,
Go ahead.
okay, just now Prof. Engku mentioned on Aitakat. So we are also one of the participants of Aitakat, as is with most of the Islamic banks in Malaysia. I think it's a very amazing program by Bank Negara that provides not just the capital, seed funding, but as well as working capital, microfinancing. More importantly is the training that comes with it. So we talk about, the main topic is on sustainable. So how do we ensure that the micro SMEs or the low-income entrepreneurs are able to get the required skills, able to get the capital that they need in order for them to grow further? So recently we collaborated under the Aitakat program together with one of the state agencies in the Northern Corridor in Penang, together with Waqaf Penang. So we actually looked into a central kitchen that is being used by F&B entrepreneurs, and the operator will train these operators over the course of 18 months in a central kitchen that we have supported and facilitated under the Aitakat program. So once these entrepreneurs graduate after 18 months, what happens to the central kitchen? It will be managed by Waqaf Penang. So the Waqaf authority will continue to use this asset for other users. This is very important because when we look into micro SME, today in Malaysia, there are 1.1 million SMEs according to DOSM. Out of 1.1 million, about 90% are micro SMEs. So micro SMEs, as we know, they do not have readily access to capital. They don't have the necessary skills required to train. I think we speak a lot about digital and how do we use AI. How can they upskill themselves, not just on making sure that their business is ongoing and able to continue, but this is where it's not just the Islamic banks, but other partners, whether it's the Zakat Authority, Waqaf Authority, state agencies, all of us have to come together to collaborate, to look into what are these challenges and how do we scale. And I think one of the important things to highlight from that is that the central kitchen is halal certified. And why it is important is because the halal market, as we know, is huge. And we want to drive the halal industry, whether Malaysia to Turkey. I mean, the whole cross-border linkages is very important, especially for the micro SMEs, that they are at the lower end of the spectrum. We have to help them, and this is where I believe, instruments like Zakat and working with the authorities can help.
Okay, thank you. I think you're doing good work there in Hong Leong. I just am reminded that it's 10 years since Waqaf Selangor Muamalat was formed. I was part of that team, and one of the cells that we did at that time to convince the Selangor authorities is to actually say we have the reach because of our branch network and all that. And I guess now the sell to the authorities is we have innovation, we have the app, we can do things for you and all that. And that collaboration between Waqaf authorities and financial institutions is very good. But unfortunately, I must say that some of these Waqaf or state authorities, they are very, very stringent, and they look at the law and say that the responsibility on Waqaf is theirs and theirs only, which is very disappointing when we were looking at that. But despite that, we broke through Waqaf Selangor Muamalat, and until today, I'm very grateful to them. And that breakthrough has gone across at least 5 or 6 states until today. And now the cell is innovation. We can use innovation to help further and reach out to people in terms of Waqaf products and all the other things. And it's good, and we hope that this collaboration will continue with the state authorities. Can I go to Mr. Ahmad? Mr. Ahmad, you talked about SME. You know, I'm intrigued with Turkey. Turkey has got something like 50% inflation, and you gripe with interest rates and all that. How do you manage all this and at the same time deal with the inclusive environment in Turkey and the innovations that you bring across?
Tough question. So, you know, coping up with the inflation has been a very kind of traditional problem throughout our, like in the modern history of Turkish Republic. And there has only been a very, few years that we had like a single-digit inflation environment in the first 10 years of these, single-party government up until 2010, I would say. And in order to overcome these problems permanently, our government has, adopted an approach, what we call more like a heterodox approach. And this was to just, sustain the access to finance, access to funding for the sake of, for the continuity and the growth capital of the SMEs, as you just mentioned. But that kind of, it requires like a multiple components of the pillars of the economy. So that's why I think we got a bit challenge on this, model, and then we shifted back to the more orthodox policies, what we call. But overall, there are cycles in the Turkish economy where our, SMEs have just blossomed because thanks to our geostrategic location with almost like a 90 million population, which is still relatively the youngest populated country, and Alhamdulillah, there has never been a growth problem. We had like a CAGR of 5% growth trajectory within the last 2.5 decades, I would say. But overall, I think we should just work on some mechanisms along with our like-minded, our brotherhood countries like Malaysia. Because when it comes to the Islamic finance, like participation banking, we only have, just to give you an idea as a figure, only have like an 8% of the market share. And there is a very clear mandate and very clear kind of direction given by His Excellency President Erdogan. We have to increase that share to 15%. And I guess there are means, there are like an instruments on it. And in order to achieve that, we should work on some, joint corridors of like a Sukuk with our friends in Malaysia. Because, yesterday we had Dr. Adnan Chilwan from the Dubai Islamic Bank, and DIB, for example, has been working very closely with Turkey. I mean, they've been financing the Turkish Airlines' first ever, aircraft financing through Sukuk, and working with our Turkish Sovereign Wealth Fund, and as well as our like a telco operator, Turkcell. So long story short, I think to achieve our sustaining long-term growth and in a more healthier way of, like, let's say, reducing the inflationary environment, yes, we do need to enable access to finance in a more broader way, and Islamic finance instruments are definitely way to go, and we seek the kind of support of an established ecosystem like Malaysia, because you guys have the old framework set up, and you have your kind of, multiple institutional investors, sovereign wealth funds, endowment funds on the ground, and they are able to deploy capital into our kind of promising high growth, offering renewable, sustainable projects all around on the infrastructure side. I believe if we work together collectively in a corridor like GCC, where I'm currently based in Abu Dhabi, and combined with a Southeast Asia aspect, we can achieve a more healthier and better kind of results out of our economy, and then we will go through this inflation problem much more successfully than before.
All right, thank you. Do we have 5 minutes more? Yeah, how many minutes? Few more minutes. Yeah, give 5 minutes. Before you go, Mr. Heroin, there's a question on how the framework in Indonesia, and why is it that the takaful industry's share is so low in Indonesia at the moment? Maybe 30 seconds to answer that.
Okay, I think a simple question. We don't get the support like Malaysian government. There is a very significant difference between us. I think us, he laughed about it there. So that's the significant difference between why the Islamic banking and takaful is still very small compared to Malaysia. Yeah, if we can get not only creating incentive, but creating level playing field also, it's already a challenge for us. So this is why, but we've seen the tractions here. When we offer any retail product or consumer products to any Muslim, most likely they will take the Sharia options. Yeah, so I think that's the challenge, So I think if we can get the same support like Malaysian government, we can be at least 30% lah, that too, yeah.
We don't offer that.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you. Before we wrap up, Arshad, there's some questions on how we can innovate sustainability, and also in terms of CIMB, are there products to aid sustainability in CIMB? 30 seconds.
Understood. Thanks for that question. With regards to innovation and Islamic finance and sustainability, I think we can't run away from discussing what we finance within the geographies we operate in. So by design, Islamic financial systems operate in countries that are fossil fuel producers. So if there is an innovation that has to be implemented within the Islamic countries through the Islamic financial system, it would have to be transition finance. So as a recap, what is transition? Transition is for hard-to-abate sectors like oil and gas, and there has to be a credible decarbonization pathway. So what we know today for the oil and gas sector, it would be the shift to renewables, and it would be carbon capture, utilization, and storage. So earlier this month, the International Capital Markets Association, or ICMA, came up with the Climate Transition Bond Guidelines. I think what we need to do in Islamic geographies that are fossil fuel producers is we need to start implementing such things. Now, what we need to bear in mind is, because we are fossil fuel producers, we can't forget about the just transition, whereby when we decarbonize, employment will be affected, right? So aside from innovating from a capital markets perspective through transition sukuk that has credible decarbonization pathways for oil and gas, that transitional unemployment, as we shift from a fossil fuel dependent country to a non-fossil fuel dependent country, Islamic social finance instruments such as Zakat Wakalah for aid, and now in Malaysia we've innovated as far as microfinancing, as well as Aitakat currently for micro entrepreneurs, but perhaps opening up as a way to reskill those employed within the fossil fuel sector to outside the fossil fuel sector. So, Dato', to answer your question with regards to innovation within the Islamic finance sector, given that we operate within fossil fuel producing countries, it would be transition sukuk for the capital markets, as well as Islamic social finance instruments tailored specifically to help those affected by the transition.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, I'll have to wrap up the session. It's been fast and furious. First of all, I think the most important point that Prof has brought up is actually it is our responsibility as Islamic financiers to innovate. That is something that God wants us to do. It's not your responsibility, it's not my responsibility, it's our responsibility. And what is key here in terms of innovation is that it is not something that we do ourselves, it is something that we should share, so that we discharge our responsibilities in the hereafter. And with that, I would end the session and pass it over to our dear MC. Thank you.
Thank you, Dato'. Okay, we would like to invite Encik Abdul Aziz Abdul Jalal, Director of CLIF 2025, to present the memento to our moderator and our panelists. A quick one. All right, can we have one group photo? Ladies and gentlemen, one group photo before Mr. Herwin fly back to Indonesia. One group photo, a quick one. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for our moderator and our panelists. Thank you.